Who let him play Yu-Gi-Oh? Chapter 1, The World of GX is in the Sun. Chapter 1 The World of GX is under the sun. Yu Xian slowly opened his eyes and looked around at the unfamiliar environment blankly. It was a room I had never seen before, but it felt inexplicably familiar. The sunlight shines mottled through the window lattice on the soft floor, twinkling like little bits of stardust. Even the air becomes light and transparent in the warm sunshine. My head felt a little dizzy and painful, and some strange images and unfamiliar fragments flashed through my mind. Some kind of instinct seemed to tell him from the bottom of his heart the extraordinary situation he was facing at this time. He traveled through time. Yu Xian looked around at his surroundings, and his eyes were quickly attracted to the computer on the desk. The computer was on, displaying a web page from a certain search engine, but it was not any search engine he was familiar with before. The large letters on the search box clearly read, "Search by Seahorse." What surprised him even more was the hot news under the search box. The Toto University research team discovered a new form of devil's summoning, and the demon deck may be greatly strengthened. Yu Xian, ? He opened it out of curiosity. The report states that the research team has developed new potential for the well-known demon monster, Devil's Summons, after day and night research, and has published a paper in an internationally authoritative top dual monster publication. A spokesperson for the team said they have spoken with International Fantasy CEO Becca J. Cloverdo, who is assisting them with the development of new cards. If you still can't recognize what kind of world you have traveled to, then Yu Xian has really been playing cards for so many years in vain. This is the world of Yu-Gi-Oh, a plane where cards are known to be the most important and where the foundation and laws of the entire world are based on playing cards. There is another one under the hot search that is even more outrageous. International conflicts in the Middle East have eased, and the two heads of state have decided to reach negotiations through a duel. Yu Xian. After reading the title, he seemed to have a picture in his mind. The two armies faced each other on the smoke-filled battlefield. Both sides were armed with live ammunition, and their long guns and short cannons were pointed at each other. At this time, the generals of the two armies each walked out of their positions, showed the dual discs and card decks on their arms, and decided to resolve the territorial dispute with a tense and exciting game of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's too grassy. But that's just how the world works. Dueling monsters is the only way to achieve extraordinary status in this world and master the power to transcend time and space and rewrite the laws of reality. The brain gradually shakes off its drowsy state, and new memories seem to be slowly absorbed. Yu Xian quickly figured out his identity in this world. Fujiki Yugen, male, currently a dual gym apprentice. Although it is called a gym, it actually feels like a social card-playing training class. Different from those formal dueling academies, the dueling gym is a social training institution that you can enter by paying money to sign up. Playing cards in the world of Yu-Gi-Oh cannot be said to be unprofessional. On the contrary, if you can really learn to play cards, your future will be bright. Since the development of dual monster cards, almost all walks of life are closely related to card playing. These days, even companies that do business must have a company-specific dual agent to help the company deal with all business matters that require playing cards. Even Deshino City, known as the City of Duels, is said to have reached the point where, under the operation of Kaiba Corporation, no one will be allowed to settle down without registering a deck. But that doesn't mean the path is easy. Although Yu Xian's predecessor was a work-study student, working to earn tuition while studying at the gym, and striving to move towards the path of a true duelist, both he and the people around him knew that his hope was slim. Because of his food. It is true that duelists have a bright future, but at the same time, this industry is too complicated. This world is different from the previous life. Duelist is a profession that is recognized as very talent-intensive. Not everyone has the potential to become a master. Apart from anything else, if a person can't even draw the card he wants to draw, then what kind of duelist is he? Yu Xian thought for a moment and felt that the development path that his predecessor had insisted on despite such hardships was correct. In this world, whether you want to seek transcendence or make a career in the city, dueling monsters is the first choice. So since he wants to take this path, his biggest reliance is his years of accumulation as a poker player in his previous life. Thinking of this, Yu Xian immediately sat in front of the computer and started searching. First, you must determine which era and background you have traveled to. There are many Yu-Gi-Oh movies, and the animations in the later stages are closer to the real-life environment. Therefore, the further you go in the environment, the smaller the advantage of being a time traveler. After a simple search, he quickly got the information he needed. This is the most classic basic dimension, the place where dreams begin, the world where the stories of Yu-Gi-Oh! DM and Yu-Gi-Oh! GX are set. The current time point should be after the completion of DM, before the start of GX or early in the story. In this way, Yu Xian has a general idea of the current dual card environment. So now let's take a look at the predecessor deck. Yu Xian. Are you serious about this deck? When I spread it out, I saw that it was a bloated 60-card deck. No, this thing couldn't be called a deck at all, it was just a pile of cards. First of all, the monsters here are a lot of ordinary monsters with no effect. Players generally like to use a word that President Kaiba often talks about to describe this kind of thing, mortal bones. Then the whole structure is simply like the 8 immortals crossing the sea to show their magical powers, and there is almost no linkage between the two cards. He randomly picked up 6 cards in his hand, each playing his own role. Yu Xian was very doubtful that these things could have any fighting power when put together. But looking at it again, he seems to have understood the idea of building the deck of his predecessor. It's of no use, mainly because it's expensive. It felt like the 2 episodes in the GX animation plot where the stupid and rich brothers of Wan Zhongmu appeared. The 2 tycoons have a lot of money but are completely noobs at playing cards. However, they believe in the theory that money comes first and firmly believe that the most expensive is the best. So they spent their money desperately and bought a Krypton gold deck composed of a dozen of the most expensive rare cards to challenge Wan Zhongmu. However, in the end, Wan Zhongmu built a temporary deck from discarded cards picked up from the dry well behind the school. Exploded. Apparently the predecessor suffered from the same problem as the 2 tycoons in the animation. Many of the cards in the deck may have come from his hard work. After seeing the outrageous market price, Yu Xian felt that he had reason to suspect that the reason why he traveled through time was because his predecessor died suddenly from an overdose. However, looking at these few cards in his hand that were nominally ultra-rare but whose meaning was unclear to him, he couldn't help but silently feel unworthy of his predecessor. In the card-playing world, many powerful cards are indeed very expensive, but expensive ones are not necessarily good ones. Many cards in this world are expensive simply because they are rare. For example, some cards are made from archaeological cultural relics, and some are made from diamonds, rings and gemstones. There are even some simply summoned monsters that are very good-looking and widely sought after, but the production is not high, so the price is high, especially some female Bodhisattva-type elves who are big but cool and leaky. So when the entire deck was turned over, Yu Xian visually felt that only a few expensive traps were of some use. It looks like the starting deck will have to be remade from scratch. Yu Xian thought for a while, and once again used the internet to check the competition videos of today's mainstream professional duelists, and roughly understood the environment and thinking of today's mainstream duelists. Sure enough, just as the animation shows. The common thinking of duelists in this era is still pursuing the crushing power, striving to create their own high attack and handsome ace monsters to achieve suppression on the scene. After watching several game videos, Yu Xian couldn't help but sigh. What a simple world. All in all, it seems that most duelists currently have a common problem. The sun is gone. There are a total of 8 fights in the underworld in the world today. In the past, the dual king Muto Yugi had only 1 stone, and the world owed him 2 fights. Nowadays, Muto Games is closed and duelists all over the world are following the example of the legendary duelist Seto Kaiba who talks about crushing jade pieces and pursues power suppression. The whole environment is suddenly filled with the atmosphere of sunshine. So Yu Xian's construction ideas were decided. He wants to bring a little bit of underworld fun to the poker world in this world. This time the background starts from GX. Please vote for collection and recommendation of the new book, especially for further reading. End of chapter. Who let him play Yu-Gi-Oh? Chapter 2, Initial Deck. Chapter 2 Initial Deck. Yu Xian logged into the card inquiry websites of Haima Group and International Fantasy Society respectively, and searched for card pools currently on the market that can be purchased directly. First of all, it may be that card that any poker player who travels here will definitely look for as long as his IQ is online. The Pot of Lust. In other words, the super powerful card drawing engine unique to the early animation world represented by Kettle of Desire. The Pot of Desire can draw 2 cards from the deck unconditionally. It is such a simple and crude effect that makes this card a 10,000-year banned card that will never be released in the foreseeable lifetime. The same sufferer as it is Angel's Alms, which not only draws 3 cards from the deck, but also selects 2 more cards from your hand and throws them into the graveyard. As Yu-Gi-Oh! Has developed to an era where the graveyard and hand resources are almost indistinguishable from each other, the horror of drawing 3 and adding a pile of graves has surpassed the Pot of Desire. However, these cards were not taken seriously by duelists in the DM animation. By the GX period, it seemed that duelists in the animation world had begun to notice their power. After all, in the GX animation, you can already see that the protagonists have at least 1 and 1 angel. In the duel of the hero and Asuka, you can even see the pot passing the pot. The scene is very brutal. In terms of monster cards, Yu Xian started to have a bit of difficulty choosing. Because after pulling down the entire card pool, he really couldn't find one that he liked. As a time-traveling card player, he really can't use those things that have to be collected as sacrifices to be summoned by higher-level players, and the summoned ones only have a blank slate with an attack power of more than 2,000. There are relatively high-quality monsters, but many of them are too expensive and unavailable to buy. For example, the first thing he thought of was the android Saga, one of the signature monsters of Katsuya Januchi in the previous generation of protagonists. The level is 6 stars. He only needs 1 sacrifice to summon, but he has a good R&D score of 2,400. He also has a trap blocking ability that is quite outstanding in the early environment. As long as he is present, he cannot use trap cards. Yu Xian remembers that this is also a very high-quality card in the real card environment of this era, and it is a frequent use in the construction of high-level decks in competitions. However, when I searched it, I found it was out of stock. Cyborg Suojia is a highly rare card that is out of stock for a long time and cannot be purchased at all. This made Yu Xian a little depressed. He quickly realized that another important factor in the difference between the environment in the animation and the real cards was the difficulty in obtaining the cards. In reality, they can see what cards are in the entire card pool of the current version at any time, and can use almost any card to implement any build. But duelists in the Yu-Gi-Oh! World don't have this convenience. Although he wanted some cards, he only glanced at the price and immediately took a breath. Farewell. Yu Xian clearly knows that being stuck in this world is almost directly equivalent to weapons and strength, so he has long been prepared to get the necessary cards at all costs. But having said that, looking at the outrageous price tags of some rare cards, he thought that even if he sold himself, he wouldn't be able to afford them. Not an exaggeration, but literally. Sure enough, the price difference between common cards and rare cards in this world is ridiculous. The prices of ordinary cards and ordinary card packs are not much different from those in the previous life, and everyone can afford them. But it is no exaggeration to say that the value of some rare cards is 1 card per set. And those are ordinary rare cards that can be bought. As we all know, there are only 3 copies of Blue Eyes White Dragon in the world, and all of them are in the hands of Seto Kaiba. That's out of the question. Continuing to learn more, I discovered that in addition to car loans and house loans, there is even something called a brand loan in this world. As the name suggests, you can take out a loan to buy a card. It turns out it feels so painful to not be stuck. Yu Xian pouted. Fortunately, even under such restrictions, he still managed to come up with a construction idea using the cards he could obtain. The prototype of this construction is the first World Conference Championship deck in history, which is a milestone in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Real card competition. The manuscript is destroyed. Maybe every novice duelist who gets into the game through animation will have some unrealistic fantasies about playing cards, such as the confrontation between the high-attack brothers in the animation, the fierce exchange of offense and defense, and the head-on duel, in a hearty battle. Hit GG. But that is false Yu-Gi-Oh! The real Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that only one of the 2 people at this table can play Yu-Gi-Oh! The surest way to win is always to eliminate the possibility of the opponent's tactics, so that the opponent can't play any cards at all. This philosophy has persisted throughout, and it remains true today, as well as in the early days of poker. Notes of Destruction is a deck built on this idea. As the name suggests, its tactic is to destroy the opponent's hand so that the opponent has no cards to play. From the moment it is put on the table, it can only stare and hang up. It can be regarded as the originator of the underworld. Facing this deck, the opponent's understanding of duel will be completely subverted. The poor man will go from blood pressure soaring to am I kidding to summoning my fist to attack in just a few minutes. A string of 3 consecutive combinations of migrant workers representing. So we must say, what is the biggest flaw of this type of deck? It may be that the user's personal safety is difficult to protect. Of course, it is impossible for Yu Xian, a champion deck from ancient times, to remember the entire structure, and he also has no way of obtaining some rare cards. So he just borrowed its ideas and made a new construction of his own. As for some vacant positions in the deck, let's just fill in more traps with decent single card quality. In fact, some traps are not considered profitable according to Yu Xian's card master's thinking, and may not be very useful. The main reason is that it is easy to lose the opponent's mentality if there are too many pitfalls. He is not a devil, and he does not try to mess with other people's mentality. The main psychological warfare is also a part of the duel. It is sometimes a very effective tactic to destroy the opponent's mentality before emptying the opponent's LP. Yes, it is like that. He continued to browse the web pages unintentionally, and when his eyes glanced over a certain page, his eyes suddenly lit up. Cyborg Saga, stock quantity 1. Yu Xian immediately slid the page back and clicked on the query. However, it was immediately rejected by the web page. No access. Academy exclusive card. Yu Xian was stunned. College department? What is that? After another round of surfing the internet, he suddenly realized. The so-called Academy department refers to the Duel Academy. The largest duel academy in the world, run and established by Seto Kaiba himself. He bought an entire island as the academy's headquarters and filled the academy with resources. Students on the island have the opportunity to have priority access to the latest card packs, and have channels to purchase rare cards that are simply unavailable to the outside world, and they can also enjoy discounts when purchasing. Even if we put aside the hardware equipment and teaching staff of the college, the rare cards and discounts alone are enough to make people jealous. Even for students with sufficiently good grades, their grades and credits can be used to redeem their cards. In a world where cards can fetch sky-high prices, this can save students a considerable amount of their card-building budget. Not to mention that students who graduate from the Duel Academy will have the most excellent diplomas in the dueling world. Whether they want to enter the profession, work for Kaiba Company or the International Fantasy Society, they will get priority opportunities for internal referrals. Scroll down casually, Yu Xian even caught a glimpse of the Chaos Wizard. Chaos Wizard, 6-star attack power 2300. It can be specially summoned directly by removing light and dark attribute monsters from the graveyard, and has a powerful effect of directly removing one monster on the opponent's field from the game once per turn. Because it has similar summoning conditions and effects to the more famous Chaos Warrior Emissary of the opening, it became its lower-level substitute after the Chaos Warrior was listed as a banned card. It was nicknamed Little Opening by the players. Frontline combat capability in the current version environment. In this world, Chaos Warrior is an ultra-rare card. In the anime, only Duel King Muto Yugi is known to have one. In the GX anime, there is also an exhibition card in Muto Yugi's replica deck. Other than that, there is no other card. Seen it before. Therefore, it is almost impossible to achieve large-scale development. But it would also be great if you could buy a Chaos Wizard. In addition, there are also some other good rare cards, which are also difficult to see in the outside market, and the prices are indeed ridiculous compared to the market price. Seeing this, Yu Xian took a deep breath. Decided. Let's take the Duel Academy test. If you don't pass the exam, you'll have World War II. End of chapter. Who let him play Yu-Gi-Oh? Chapter 3, First Battle. Chapter 3 The First Battle. The initial deck from time travel is thus formed. After the examination was confirmed, Yu Xian naturally began to feel a little itchy soon. It's impossible for any deck player to not want to try out the quality of a deck after just completing it. So for him, his first choice is to go directly to the gym where his predecessor belonged, and prepare to randomly find a gym colleague to bring him the joy of dueling. When I arrived at the gym, I saw a group of students gathered around and making a lot of noise as soon as I entered the door. As expected of Brother Sato, he actually succeeded in overcoming the tribulation. Yu Xian raised his eyebrows and looked over curiously. Surrounded by the apprentices was a man named Huang Mao, who had a hairstyle that looked like he was good at playing cards. He sounded modest, but he couldn't hide his pride. "No, I just got a 3-star rating by luck, so it's just like that, huh? Level 3. Brother Sato should be the first level 3 in our gym, right? Too strong." Yu Xian frowned and searched in the memory of his predecessor, and then he understood what they were talking about. The Duelist Star System is a strength evaluation index that Kaiba Company adjusts in real time based on the performance of each duelist registered in the company's system. It is also the system that appeared in the Yu-Gi-Oh! DM anime. Normally, duelist star levels range from level 1 to level 8, a total of 8 levels. In the DM Duel City anime, Duel King Muto Yugi and Kaiba Sito himself were both rated level 8. However, it can also be seen that this system is not absolutely authoritative, and sometimes there are some personal factors involved. Take, for example, Junichi Katsuya, a man whom Kaiba contemptuously calls Mortal Bones. Junichi is called the third duelist in the world after Yugi and Kaiba by Bikas. However, according to Kaiba Company's system rating, he is only level 2, which is an amateur level. You can hardly say that this does not include the personal grudge between the president and Fan Gu. But that was already during the Duel City period. Now Katsuya Junichi has been adjusted to level 8, which is the highest level among duelists in general, and is called the legendary duelist by the world. President Kaiba Sito adjusted himself to level 10 very shamelessly. There are only 2 level 10 duelists left in the world. One is Sito Kaiba himself, and the other is Yugi Muto, who has long since closed down and retired. On the one hand, this setting is because President Kaiba believes that he is a higher level than all existing duelists. It also means that Muto Yugi is the only opponent in the world that he recognizes as qualified to match him. Well, to say rivalry is actually a bit exaggerated. Because everyone knows that President Kaiba has made numerous appointments with Duel King Muto Yugi throughout his life, but so far he has not won a single victory. And Yu Xian's predecessor is rated in the system 1 star. A fighter among rookies. Yu Xian, winky face. Apparently, it was because his predecessor was both good and fun-loving. He often went to the arena under the Haima group to play matches, but he lost more than he won. As time went by, his natural star level plummeted all the way to the bottom of the abyss. If most people want to improve their star rating, they have to go to the arena to play matches. However, it seems that arena matching can only be upgraded to 4 stars at most. If you want to continue to upgrade, you have to participate in public competitions. Only then did he remember that when he searched for the registration requirements for Duel Academy, there seemed to be a rule that duelists certified by Kaiba Company must have a star rating of at least level 3. In this system, levels 7 and 8 are either legendary duelists or upper-level masters in the professional circle. Most of the professional players are at level 6, and a few low-level professional players are at level 5. Most of the amateur duelists are in level 2. Level 1 is a below-average rookie, and level 3 is considered an expert. Therefore, the registration requirements for Duel Academy require 3 stars or above, which is actually considered high. But this is natural. At this stage, duel education in this world is still in its infancy, and there are not many choices of schools. And the college run by Haima is the top among them. The quality of the college and the huge amount of resources invested are obvious to all. At the beginning of the GX animation, the principal also mentioned that the college's admissions requirements are strict when giving a speech to the whole school, so all the students present are elites. Theoretically speaking, the passers-by students in the academy in the animation, even the poor students in Osiris Red Dormitory, are actually higher than most duelists outside. So if you want to enter the academy, do you have to improve your scores first? Yu Xian's lips twitched. The apprentice surrounded by everyone in front of him is called Sato Koji, and he is already the eldest brother in this small gym. It seemed that I was lucky enough to get a 3-star rating this week, and everyone was congratulating me. Yu Xian happened to be looking for someone to have a date with someone at this time. Thinking of this, he decided that he might as well try to date his elder brother. Although the passers-by who appeared in the animation seemed to be incompetent, Yu Xian knew that only through practice can true knowledge emerge. You can't make any conclusions based on your own impressions without personal testing. It's time to test the strength of duelists in this world. The gym encourages students to make appointments to play card games from time to time. At this time, Sato Susumu was in a happy mood after he had just reached Oichi, and there was no reason to refuse when he saw a card game challenge. As soon as the students scattered in the gym heard that there were cards to see, they all immediately gathered at the duel venue to watch. Really or not? That Yugen? Are you dating brother Sato? I remember, isn't he just a star? Isn't this just looking for abuse? The students were laughing and joking nearby, while the two warring parties were already standing on both sides of the venue. Sato Koji was in a relaxed mood at this time. Those who have scored points now go back to the gym to make appointments. Looking at these juniors, they feel proud of themselves. Now he feels quite like a master coming to give guidance to the juniors. Playing this card is no longer for the purpose of learning and improving. On the one hand, it is to give pointers to the juniors, and on the other hand, it is to satisfy his need to show off his skills in front of his junior brothers. Well, the latter is probably slightly more common. If not, how could he, a 3-star boss, turn against a 1-star junior? The duel board between the two unfolded and each drew 5 cards from their hands. Duel, X2. Yu Xian, LP 4000. Koji, LP 4000. I'm going to attack first and draw a card. Yu Xian drew a card from the deck. In the anime, we are still in the era where you can draw cards by attacking first. Since many years ago in the previous life, it was no longer possible to draw cards when attacking first. The first hand is usually determined randomly by both sides in the duel board, but the person who gets the first hand can also choose to give up. After scanning the 6 cards in his hand, he couldn't help but nodded slightly. Although it cannot be said to be a perfect codex, it is still so-so. First is this card. He drew the first card and inserted the duel disc. Pay 1000 life points to activate the magic card from your hand, the mischievous twin demons. Yu Xian, LP 4000 LP 3000. As the card was inserted, the 3-dimensional projection of the green magic card appeared in front of Yu Xian. 2 little devils, 1 red and 1 blue, flew out with the numbers 1 and 2 on their heads respectively. The effect of this card allows the opponent to randomly discard a card in their hand, and then the opponent can choose a card in their hand to discard. In the early competitions, simple and crude codes destroyed heavy weapons. Violence is exchanged for 2. If you shoot it, the opponent's hand will be reduced by 2. It is conceivable that such a cruel thing is the same as the Pot of Desire. It has been a forbidden card since Yu Xian started playing cards. So after so many years of playing cards, this is the first time he has shot something like this with his own hands. The devil flew out and grabbed a card from Haoshua without any explanation, as if to say, bring it to you. Haoji frowned, then selected another card and put it in the graveyard. Then Yu Xian drew 3 cards from his hand without any further operations. After 3 sets of cover, pass. Then he made a gesture of invitation. Okay, now it's your turn to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Any real card player who faces those 3 black cards in the backcourt should have begun to feel the breath of the underworld and start to break out in cold sweat. However, as the saying goes, the ignorant is fearless. The duelists in the sunny environment of animation are completely unaware to the seriousness of the problem. However, even still maintained the gentle smile of a friendly senior brother, and said in a pointing tone, didn't you draw a monster card in the first round? When constructing the deck, junior brother, you should pay attention to the reasonable combination of monsters and magic traps. Then it's my turn, draw a card. Etc. Yu Xian interrupted him and waved his hand. The moment you draw the card, the trap has been triggered. Open the cover card, and the trap card, knocked down, activates during the opponent's card drawing phase, and discards the card drawn by the opponent directly to the graveyard. Koji! Exclamation point. He hesitated for a moment, then sent the card, which had just been drawn but was still warm, to the graveyard of the dual plate. Looking down at his hand again, he finally began to realize something was wrong. So far, neither side has taken a single monster, and it seems that the fight has not started at all. Hauer has already lost half of the 6 cards in his hand, leaving only 3 cards. And he also faced an even more painful problem. That means he has nothing strange on his hands. The 2 cards the twin demons threw down contained a lower-level monster, and the one they just defeated was another one. There are only 3 cards in hand now, and there are no monsters that can be played. But it doesn't matter. TCH, if that's the case, then I activate the magic card from my hand. Hauer waved his hand and took another card from the remaining 3 cards in his hand. The dead come to life. The resurrection magic that can resurrect a monster from the graveyard has been a highly sought-after reversal card from the DM to GX era, both in reality and in animation. I'm going to use the resurrection of the dead to resurrect this warrior of Gera from the graveyard. Attack to revive. This time, a warrior dressed in green armor and holding a big sword stood majestically in the middle of the field, becoming the first monster to appear in the duel. Gera's warrior, attack power 1600. In fact, if someone chooses Koji, they definitely don't want to use the precious resurrection of the dead to resurrect such a trash fish, but there is no other way and there is no card to play. If he hesitates in a duel, he will lose. He must seize the opportunity to launch an offensive rhythm. Open Gaikaneraku's hole. Yu Xian calmly turned over a backfield card. When the opponent summons a monster with an attack power of 1500 or more, that monster is destroyed and eliminated. Then they saw that Gera's warrior, who had spent a death sue on the stage, had not yet stood firm on his heels. He stepped directly into the black hole under his feet and fell into it and exploded with a loud bang. A smoke screen, no shadow. Koji. There are only 2 cards left in the hand, and the field is still blank. I don't know if it's an illusion. Sato Koji seemed to feel that his blood pressure was beginning to rise. End of chapter. Who let him play Yu-Gi-Oh? Chapter 4, Duelists are not allowed to leave the ring to hit anyone. Chapter 4 Duelists are not allowed to leave the ring to hit anyone. A true duelist should have the composure to remain calm even when a mountain collapses. No matter what situation he faces, he should remain calm and calm. He should not let impulse take over and affect his rational judgment. Sato Koji was closing his eyes, taking deep breaths, and repeatedly trying to remind himself of this. Hitting is a foul. Because it's really hard to remember that when you're dealing with this little species. There was nothing he could do with the 2 cards left in his hand. Koji Sato could only declare the end of the round through gritted teeth. Then it was Yu Xian's turn again, and the happy time began again. Draw a card. Yu Xian drew a card from the deck. At this time, Sato Koji's front court and back court were clean, and he was simply a little girl who was seducing people into committing crimes. In this era when Yu-Gi-Oh has not been poisoned by the widespread hand pits, emptying is basically equivalent to running naked. It is a situation where people can just knock down and do it without any psychological burden. So Yu Xian didn't waste much time and directly took a picture of the monster card he just got. Summon, Leader Zalug, in attack position. The one-eyed warrior with a face full of vicissitudes of life came to Yu Xian's front court, one eye covered with an eye patch. Leader Zalug, attack power 1400. Fight directly. Yu Xian ordered, use Leader Zalug to attack the player directly. After receiving the order, the soldier took out 2 revolvers, transformed into a pair of eagles and opened fire. A string of projected bullets passed through Hauer's body, and the invisible impact caused him to stagger back half a step. In the latest duel system developed by Kaiba Company, the monsters summoned by the dual disc are not only stereoscopic projections, but also come with somatosensory impact devices. Although it will not cause real damage to the duelist, it is enough to simulate realistic impact and certain pain stimulation to enhance the immersive experience of dueling. Koji, LP4000 LP2600. He took a deep breath as he ate it directly to his face. Fortunately, he was just a miscellaneous fish with an attack power of 1400, so he could still withstand it. But then I saw Yu Xian smiling. The effect of Leader Zalug is activated. When this card inflicts combat damage to the opponent, I can choose to activate one of the two effects. First, the opponent randomly discards a card in his hand. Second, the top two cards of the opponent's deck are sent to the graveyard. Hao Er's eyelids twitched suddenly. Wait, is it possible that you want it? You want it? His face began to distort, his expression gradually became frightened, and his body retreated uncontrollably driven by instinct. Yes, I choose an effect to activate. Yu Xiandao, erase another card in your hand. As soon as he finished speaking, Zalug had already raised his revolver. There was only a bang of a gunshot, and a projected hole appeared on one of the two remaining cards in Haoji's hand. Hao Er gritted his teeth and sent another card to the graveyard, his eyes about to burst. Now he only has one card left. This was not the only card game he had ever lost in his life, nor was his opponent the most powerful of all the opponents he had ever encountered. But this is definitely the card game he wants to play the most. Can you believe that I haven't taken any pictures of the cards so far? Cover two more cards onto the field and the round ends. Yu Xian had two more blocks in the backcourt. This time when Hao Er saw the two extra abyss-like Gaika, his attitude was completely different from his previous contemptuous attitude, and his breathing almost became stagnant. Again. Don't. Please let me play a card. What unfolded at this point was obviously beyond the expectations of the onlookers. The students on both sides looked at me, and I looked at you, with expressions of confusion. What to say about this duel? It just feels weird, very weird. Want to see a fast-paced game of offense, defense and strength? No, there are only underworld people here who are ready to mess with people's mentality. Want to see high-speed summons and gorgeous bosses? No, there are only people from the underworld here who are satisfied after finishing the job. Anyway, so far in this card game, one side has not been able to draw a single card, so there is no strategy for analysis and evaluation at all. As for the side that played the cards, every step of the way with each card, their thoughts seemed to be vaguely run through by two words. Newspaper agency. That is, revenge on society. Not even a single monster is summoned, and the opponent's health is not affected at all. The entire operation seems to be a silent declaration, I may not win, but you absolutely don't want to play Yu-Gi-Oh today. Isn't it revenge against society? Junior brother, it's wrong for you to duel like this. Koji tried hard to maintain the image of a gentle senior, but his twitching facial muscles and trembling voice seemed to be straining. Yu Xian smiled and said nothing, and made a please gesture politely, indicating that it was his turn to play Yu-Gi-Oh. That being said, but all poker players know that Yu-Gi-Oh is a very cruel game. As long as one of the two sides can play it, it's enough. Haoji reluctantly raised the dual plate again. Then it's my turn. He gritted his teeth. The last card left in the hand, and it's also an equipment magic card. It's obviously useless if it can't even summon a monster. This is the fateful draw. But a true duelist never backs down. Just like the legendary duel king Muto Yugi said, believe in your deck and the deck will definitely respond to you. He believes in the bond between himself and the deck. Sato Hiroshi put his fingers on the card deck, taking a deep breath and thinking silently in his mind. Autumn pear paste. Here comes the 4-star monster. Then there was a drawing card that seemed to be infused with soul, drawing a handsome arc. The moment he opened his eyes and caught a glimpse of the card, Sato Koji's pupils were shaking and he almost looked up to the sky laughing. Coming. Not only did he draw a monster that could be summoned, but he was also a demon lizardihao with a 4-star attack power of 1850. It has a taunting 50 points of attack power that is exactly 50 points higher than those currently highly sought after high-quality fighters with an attack power of 1800 on the market. It is the strongest lower-level monster in his deck. Sure enough, the deck responded to his wishes. However, the corner of Hauer's mouth curled up, as if the counterattack was about to begin. When he looked up and saw clearly a cover card that had been opened in the opponent's backcourt at some point, his smile instantly froze. Trap card, knockdown, machine number 2. It is activated during the opponent's card drawing phase, and the card drawn by the opponent is directly thrown to the graveyard. Sato Koji. According to the effect of knocking it down. Yu Xian said politely, please throw away that card as well. Hauer's lips were almost bleeding from being bitten. With a ferocious expression, he threw the demon lizardy Hao, the key to the comeback, into the graveyard. When he looked down, he only had the equipment magic of the Lone Widow left behind, in his hand. The round is over. Koji declared depressedly. Then it's my turn again and I draw a card. Yu Xian glanced at the card he drew and saw another trap. There were so many red pits in one hand that they overflowed, but the opponent obviously had no cards left to pit him against. So he added this card to his hand and waved his hand casually. Leader Zalug, attack directly. Koji, LP2600 LP1200. Zarig's effect is activated again. Of course, it's still the same effect. Yu Xian pointed to the last card in his hand. Throw away that one too. Sato Koji saw that the last card in his hand had also entered the graveyard, and suddenly thought that he might have put this card on the field in the last round. Although it didn't mean much, at least he could keep this card. My mentality collapsed and I completely forgot about this. Although it doesn't seem to have any impact on the situation. End of round. Then my turn draws cards. This time Hauer drew a card, but he didn't even look at what he drew, but stared straight at Yu Xian's backcourt. It's like asking, is there any trap? So I drew a card. Really smoked. Yu Xian smiled and motioned for him to pass. Finally passing the card drawing stage with difficulty and entering the preparation stage of this round, Sato Koji almost cried. Before, he might have never dreamed that drawing cards was such a luxurious happiness. When he saw the card drawn in his hand, his mood lifted even more. The Murderous Doll of Resentment, 4 stars, attack power 1600. It would normally be an ordinary monster, but its 1600 attack power could save lives at this moment. Because although the leader Zalug has a disgusting effect, his attack power is only 1400. Finally, he was able to defeat the Sword Tomb thing on the opposite side that threw away cards from his hand every turn. Sato Koji couldn't wait. I summoned the Murderful Doll of Resentment to attack the leader Zalug. Hit me the end die. Don't get excited, buddy, calm down, the duel should be played with a smile. Yu Xian reminded with a smile. And don't worry, we haven't reached the combat stage yet. Because I activated the trap card just now. He pointed to a cover card erected in the backcourt. Trap card, forced escape device. Forces a monster on the field to return to the owner's hand. I want to return the Murderful Doll of Resentment to your hand. The trap took effect, and before the cursed doll holding the axe could stand firm on its heels, it turned into a piece of golden light and flew back to Sato Hiroshi. Sato Koji. This is the only card in his hand. And he just used up his only normal summoning opportunity this round. So obviously, he has no cards to play. It was obvious what was going to happen next. He can't do anything but end the turn, and then that Zalug will hit him again and throw away the last cards in his hand. Oh no, I can't even wait until that time. Because he only has 1200 LP left, and he will die if he takes another hit. However, Yu Xian ultimately failed to return Sato Koji's LP to 0. Because before the next round comes. During the duel, Sato Koji failed to directly attack the opponent's duelist. He was hurriedly stopped by the onlookers and was immediately disqualified. End of chapter. Who let him play Yu-Gi-Oh? Chapter 5, Happy Duel. Chapter 5 Happy Duel. Yu Xian began to discover the joy of playing cards in a different world. However, he soon discovered that happiness in the world should be conserved. Because he became happy, the brothers in the gym seemed to be losing interest in dueling. In just 3 days, no one wanted to make a date with him. Yu Xian could only look up at the sky and sigh. Now he seems to be starting to understand a little bit why Piao Yushi said that he couldn't make friends before he met the pharaoh. Sure enough, people in the underworld are not worthy of friends. Later, the incident even alarmed the owner of the museum. The gym leader is Takeuchi Kajiryu. It is said that he was the top 32 in the small-town duel competition when he was young. Master Takeuchi heard that one of his apprentices had made rapid progress in dueling skills recently, defeating his senior brother who was his most popular disciple in one fell swoop. In the past 3 days, he had beaten all the apprentices to isolation, and now no one is willing to challenge him to a duel. Upon hearing this, the owner of Takeuchi Hall immediately felt that he had to come forward. He immediately gathered the apprentices together and first praised Yu Xian for his hard work and rapid progress, and then criticized the other apprentices for their negative attitudes. The gym leader taught that the purpose of setting up a competition is to improve oneself, and it is obviously a good thing to have a strong opponent. Otherwise, what can we do if we fry fish and abuse vegetables all day long, punch Nanshan nursing home and kick Beihai kindergarten? The apprentices were trained to keep their heads down and did not dare to say a word. That's all. The owner waved his hand and waved to Yu Xian with a smile. If they don't want to come, then I'll give it a try myself to see how you're progressing, so I can give you some guidance on your deck. Finally, he found someone who was willing to make a date with him. Yu Xian also had several structural adjustments that he wanted to test, so he happily accepted it. Okay, so today is a duel with the master. The master was very handsome and gave the first move directly to Yu Xian, showing his masterly demeanor. Then Yu Xian was not polite and directly took the initiative. Just pay 1,000 blood when you start, and show the magic card, take charge. This familiar unfolding made all the apprentices who had suffered so much in the past 3 days shudder, almost not suffering from PTSD. Then the effect of confinement is activated. Exist. Kong Kong hand. Here Yu Xian glanced at the resurrection of the dead in the master's hand and threw it away. Then he usually summons green gear, and when the summoning effect is successful, he can retrieve a red gear from the deck. Then he had 3 blocks in the backcourt and passed straight through in a cool way. Then it's the master's turn. The master directly took a picture of Iron Knight Kia Fried, which has a 4-star attack power of 1800 and is very handsome. But it was of no use, because before the Iron Knight could stand still, he took a falling hole from Yu Xian and sent him to the underworld. Fell into a hole, it will be destroyed directly when a monster with an attack power of 1000 or more is successfully summoned. But the master is worthy of being a master, and he can still operate. Although the summon point is gone this round, he can activate the effect of Rock Spirit Titan in his hand and can be specially summoned by excluding Earth attribute monsters in the graveyard. He banishes the Iron Knight in the graveyard and jumps the Titan directly onto the field. Following Master Takeuchi's wave, he used Titan to attack the green gear. But Yu Xian snapped his fingers, and a bright red pit opened up in the backcourt. I directly activate Hanno's noble power. Holy Protective Shield Reflector power, destroys all attack position monsters on the opponent's field when the opponent declares an attack. Master Takeuchi. After stepping on 2 pits in a row, the master had no choice but to pass by. Then it was Yu Xian's turn again. Yu Xian glanced at the drawn card, and then directly gave it to Zhang, prankish twin fairies. Gain 1000 blood, and the opponent throws 2 more cards. Master Takeuchi looked down at the cards in his hand that had evaporated in an instant until there was only 1 card left, and fell into thinking about life. Yu Xian then summoned the red gear, retrieved in the previous round, and then when the red gear's effect summoned successfully, he could retrieve yellow gear from the deck. During the battle stage, red gear and green gear made moves respectively, and their double direct attacks directly took away the master's 2700 LP. This isn't even over yet. At the end of the game, he waved his hand and opened another cover card. Engraved seal. Trap/effect, skip the card drawing phase of the opponent's next turn. You may not believe it, but this Underworld card is also a card from the Duel King Mudo game. It was printed by Duel City Dark Game when it was dueling with the Guru's counterfeit card dealer who used the Dark Archmage, Exodia. The cards in my hand were evaporated, and during the card drawing stage, I was directly cut by the Crimson King. Master Takeuchi looked at his empty field, which was as clean as a blank sheet of paper, and then at the two gears on the opposite field gearing up, and he couldn't help but seriously began to think about the feasibility of a physical duel. 1 minute later. The LP returned to 0, and the gym leader who walked off the duel field looked up at the sky and took a deep breath. And he began to reflect on what he couldn't think of, and why he had to fight with such a thing from the underworld when he was full. The apprentices watching the battle looked even more sad. Even the master fell down. In fact, before the game started, they still had expectations for the outcome. Everyone feels more or less that although they are very powerless in the face of this evil situation, and feel frustrated that they cannot use their strength and cannot use their cards, it is mostly because they are not good at learning. If you meet a master, the result will definitely be different. However, the reality is that the master got up, the master went up with A, and the master also played GG. The process was almost exactly the same as what happened when each of them faced Yu Xian in the past few days. This was a shock to their outlook on life, a collapse of their worldview, and they felt endless confusion and deep worry about the dark future of the entire dueling world. At the same time, similar thoughts flashed through their hearts. The invincible master lost to an autistic man who took revenge on society. Why did I have such a dream? In fact, Yu Xian's construction idea for this test is very simple, which is a combination of the early traditional trap beat and codex destruction. Friends who have played Yu-Gi-Oh! In the early years know that in that era when monsters were not as powerful as they are today, and deck operation and expansion capabilities were not as exaggerated as they are today, powerful magic traps played a very important role in mainstream decks. Status. The 3 gears of red, green and yellow have the effect of replenishing each other's hand cards when summoned. They can refill ammunition to prevent monsters from being destroyed. At the same time, the powerful red pits and magic can continuously break open the opponent's resources. The resource gap between the two sides continues to widen. Naturally, there's no way to fight. But Yu Xian still expressed his humility to ask for advice. Master, what do you think of my deck? Is there anything else I can ask Master for advice on? After hearing this, Master Takeuchi came back from his contemplation of life and gave him a meaningful look. It's strange to say that he is obviously a handsome and sunny young man, but now he feels panicked when he sees this face. Guidance? What can I give you? You are so awesome, you should give me some guidance. To be honest, if he didn't feel that he was a bit embarrassed, he actually had this idea in his heart. He wants to duel with Yu Xuanxue. I especially want to learn this kind of duel that can make people feel proud. I have nothing left to teach you. The head of Takeuchi Hall sighed, somewhat feebly. By the way, teacher, I remembered that I still have something to ask for. Yu Xian said. What's up? I want to sign up for the Duel Academy entrance exam. Yu Xian Dao, I want to ask if I can apply for a subsidy for the gym. End of chapter. Who let him play Yu-Gi-Oh? Chapter 6, let's talk about winning a championship. Chapter 6 Let's talk about winning the championship. You want to go to Duel Academy? Director Takeuchi was stunned. With that being said, it seems that it is indeed almost time for Duel Academy enrollment to open. The Duel Academy is like a holy place to the younger generation of duelists. There are many top students there, and almost everyone who graduates is destined to be an elite figure. Moreover, under the operation of Seto Kaiba, whether he is the son of a world-class chaebol or the second-generation official of his family, as long as he has no talent, no matter how rich his financial resources and background are, he will not be affected. Who is Seto Kaiba? The most capable duelist in the world today controls the Blue Eyes White Dragon, the most powerful duel spirit in the world that is comparable to the 3 phantom gods of the past. Rumor has it that he is even developing technology to travel through dimensions and time and space, trying to use technological means to get through to the underworld. Go to the gate to play cards with the unknown pharaoh who has long since fallen asleep. Not only is he the richest man in the world, he is also a strong man who stands at the pinnacle of both the extraordinary side and the technological side. After Mudo Games was banned, he was recognized as the world's #1 duelist. And he doesn't recognize anything, only card skills. So if Seto Kaiba said that he would not open the back door and only look at strength, then he really only looked at strength. No matter what kind of powerful person wants to enter his school, he must take the exam obediently. There is absolutely no room for secret operations. Moreover, he advocates strength and elite education. This can be seen from the strict hierarchy in the Duel Academy in GX and the disdain the teachers and students in the school have for students with poor grades. Many dueling gyms provide subsidies for students to apply for dueling academies. Because once they successfully land, the students will undoubtedly be high-quality alumni in the future, and they will also have good publicity benefits for the gym. Master Takeuchi's gym also provides this subsidy, but the number of places is limited each year. And considering that Yu Xian has penetrated the entire gym including the master in the past 3 days, he should naturally be within the qualifications. If the application is approved, students will not only receive tuition subsidies, but the gym will also provide a card group fund. The club owner will personally provide one-on-one guidance to help students purchase new cards and optimize their construction. Of course, in Yu Xian's case, the guidance part can be dispensed with. All he has to do is give him money, etc. Just as the owner of Takeuchi responded, something suddenly occurred to him. What's your duelist level? 0.1 star. Owner, ... To be honest, even though he had seen it with his own eyes, he still found it difficult to understand how a 1-star student could suddenly advance to such an extent like an enlightenment. However, having personally experienced Yu Xian's current duel strength, he also felt that there was a high chance that Yu Xian would come ashore this time. But 1 star doesn't meet the registration threshold. I know. Yu Xian nodded, so I'm going to try it out in the arena tomorrow and try to compete as soon as possible. Well, it's only 1 month before the entrance exam, so time is a bit tight. The head of Takeuchi thought for a while, it would be much more convenient if I could get a place in the public competition. If you get the ranking in the public competition, you can directly rise to the high star level in one go. You don't have to slowly gain points one by one like in the ordinary arena. Moreover, you can also build up your resume in the competition, which is also good for your future career as a duelist. Let's see. Master Takeuchi looked at Sato Koji. I remember that Koji was not preparing to participate in this year's Yuehua Cup competition. Although the registration window seems to have been closed, there are friends I know in the organizer, so it is not a big problem to include more people in the primary election. The registration fee is also paid by the gym. What do you think? This year, only Koji in the entire gym has reached 3 stars, so naturally he was the only one who originally planned to apply for the Duel Academy. He participated in the Yuehua Cup because he wanted to gain more experience before enrolling in school. It would be better if he could get a ranking. Thank you very much, Master. Yu Xian said. On the side, Koji Sato couldn't help but take a breath when he heard this. Is this guy going to compete too? What if I were ranked next to him again on the field? As soon as he imagined that scene, he suddenly couldn't help but shudder and felt uncomfortable all over. But then he thought that there were so many contestants, and the probability of being ranked was not high. Or rather, when you get to the arena, you will have the opportunity to see more duelists who don't know why, just like you, your junior brother brings down Xiao Rong in a duel. When he thought of that scene, he couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth. The smile gradually changed. Sure enough, dueling will still bring happiness. It just depends on who is happy. The first ray of sunshine in the morning is like a soft line of poetry, like a quiet world covered with a layer of golden gauze. The darkness of night is driven away, replaced by a fresh and bright morning, the air filled with the faint scent of morning fragrance and flowers. At 6:20 in the morning, Yu Xian woke up lazily from his comfortable bed. The sun shines through the gauze-like curtains, creating mottled light and shadow on the white sheets and soft bedding. I slept late last night, and the quality of my sleep was not very good. I had a lot of dreams. He only vaguely remembered seeing black and white impermanence in his dream. The 2 men first said sarcastically that his life was over and it was time to die, but then they opened the duel tray left and right and took out 2 decks of cards, saying that as long as he won the duel, his life would be extended. Why do I have such a dream? Yu Xian rubbed his temples. It seems that I have slowly begun to incorporate the basic idea of this worldview of playing cards, that is, there is nothing that cannot be solved by playing cards. It took only 5 minutes for Yu Xian to shake off his sleepiness, jump out of bed, quickly change clothes and wash up, and start a new day of study. You can never imagine how terrifying a self-disciplined card player can be. There is still 1 month left before the Duel Academy entrance exam, so it's time to start a little preview. Originally, he wondered how difficult the duel exam could be. Isn't it just the learning and application of K language? For example, what is the difference between whether a certain card effect takes the target or not, such as the sequence of chain settlement, such as high-end card timing teaching, etc.? None of the above. There are no Yu-Gi-Oh! Special rules about these real cards that are more difficult to understand. The concept questions only have the basics of, please explain what are normal magic cards, equipment magic cards, and field magic cards, just like the class questions asked by Mr. Kuronos in the GX animation. Then there is the memory of various card effects. In fact, Yu Xian soon discovered that this part was surprisingly difficult, because it was impossible for him to remember the classification and effects of a bunch of ancient cards that had not been used in the real card environment for 20 years. Not to mention that there are a large number of animation and comic cards in this world that have never been actualized. He also quickly noticed that there were many differences between the real card environment here and 20 years ago. Many cards may not be implemented until 20 years later, but they are available here now. Of course, it's not surprising when you think about it. Even the key card, Miracle Contact, of the Sinew deck in Judai's hand has been coveted by various hero players for countless years since it appeared in the animation. It feels like they have been waiting a lifetime for the Dog K to become a real card. So of course there are many cards here that were not available back then. Looking at the entire question bank, it seems to Yu Xian that it is all content with little nutrition, and the consciousness and techniques that really involve the core of card skills are not mentioned at all. This reminded him of a secondary explanation he had seen online in his previous life. For many movies and animations, reality is a higher dimension, and in the world of Yu-Gi-Oh!, cards are the foundation of creation. Duel represents the most original law of the world, rather than just a card game like in reality. So for people in the animation world, exploring the rules of dueling is like doing cutting-edge research in reality, and it is an exploration of the truth. It's not that difficult to learn how to play cards in the real world, but it takes a lot of talent and a lot of hard work to figure it out in the animated world. Yu Xian bought a set of teaching aids such as Fundamentals of Duel Theory and Duel Academy Real Question Bank, and spent most of the day studying the questions. At the same time, he also took the time to learn about the field of card making. The previous generations of Yu-Gi-Oh! Animations focused on the stories of duelists, and the card design part was only briefly mentioned. All we know is that Bekas, known as the father of duel monsters, first discovered the ancient duel monster slates in Egypt and made the slates into cards. This is how the modern duel monster card system came into being. Later, the card production work was mainly issued by Bekas's International Fantasy Company, but it was not entirely a monopoly. Companies like Haima have also printed many cards, which are also circulating in the market. In the future, there will be game players like Muto Yugi and Yujo Judai, each of whom has the talent to print cards on the spot according to the needs of the situation. The printing is so arrogant that sometimes they will even print themselves and their duel opponents directly into the card without any cover-up. Obviously these private seal cards can also be recognized by the system and duel rules, and are not considered a violation. After all, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is originally an extraordinary world, and playing cards is an expression of the extraordinary. So, like some top-notch game players shouting about friendship, bonding, etc. in front of their opponents, they take out a whiteboard and print the text effects on the card on the spot. It can even be said to be the application of the laws of this world. Is a manifestation of extraordinary strength. How can the Duel King thing be called cheating? God-drawing seal cards are all part of the duel, so don't play if you don't feel comfortable with them. However, it is conceivable that in such a world, it is impossible to print cards at will. Even if you are a designer from the International Fantasy Society, the newly designed cards must comply with the rules to a certain extent and cannot be arbitrary. What Yu Xian is curious about is what kind of threshold is required to create a card, and what kind of card can be recognized. Assuming that all the cards that existed in the real card pool in the previous life could be printed, then as a card maker, he would be able to bring a bit of modern Yu-Gi-Oh storytelling to this earthly card world. Yu Xian here also bought a series of reference books and teaching materials first. I don't really expect to learn it so easily, I just want to have a superficial understanding first. Building the basics of sight magic, an introduction to environmental modeling. 9 common misunderstandings in monster card design. Not surprisingly, card making in this world is a very advanced knowledge. There are now many university laboratories and cutting-edge research institutes specializing in scientific research and development related to dual monsters. Even many old cards have potential for further development and design. More representative ones, such as the most famous Blue Eyes White Dragon, were developed by an independent research team led by Seto Kaiba himself. That is the world's top dual monster research team. Rumor has it that they have developed various blue-eyed evolved forms such as White Spirit Dragon, Blue-eyed Sub-White Dragon, Blue-eyed Double Explosion Dragon, and so on. There is also a king-like Chaos Warrior. In the early years, when the card was made from slate, it was just a blank monster with 8 stars and 3,000 attacks. However, now it has also been developed into the vest of Chaos Warrior Emissary of the Pioneering, which is a reality card. The Big Open, that people call it, is a super rare card that is rare in the world, and it is also a legendary and powerful monster that duelists call it. It would be great if I could learn to make cards by myself. Yu Xian thought. But for now, I'm just thinking about it. He remembered that in the first season of the anime, he and his roommate Maeda Hayato were in the same dormitory as Yujo Judai. After graduating from Duel Academy, he seemed to have joined the International Fantasy Club full-time as a card designer. Yugen guessed that there might be something related to card making in the academy. Professional courses. If you have the chance, you must go and learn about it. As for now, he has set a new small goal for now. Let's go and win the Yuehua Cup first. End of chapter. Who let him play Yu-Gi-Oh? Chapter 7, Preliminary Round. Chapter 7 Preliminary Round. The vast arena for competitions and duels, with majestic ancient cities standing there. Although the game has not started yet, the audience is already packed with people. Yu Xian and his senior brother from the gym, Koji Sato, came to the door of the venue together. After getting off the car, they looked up and saw the sculpture of the Black Magician standing at the main entrance of the venue. Although the Dark Magician, a rare card whose appearance in the main game has plummeted as Muto Yugi retired, has plummeted, the former Duel King's ace monster still serves as a facade in many competition venues. Then I'm going to prepare for the competition. The preliminary competition should start soon. Sato Koji said to him. Junior brother, you should prepare as soon as possible. Okay. I look forward to meeting my senior brother again on the playing field. Yu Xian said angrily. But after hearing this, the senior brother's expression became strange, and he hesitated to speak but also wanted to speak. I don't want to see you again at all. But in the end, I still couldn't say it. After bidding farewell to his senior brother, Yu Xian received his certificate and number plate as a contestant from the lady in charge of registration at the front desk. He took the number plate and saw it was number 39. It's a pretty auspicious number for poker players. Yu Xian put away the number plate and nodded with satisfaction. It seems that I am very lucky today and I think I should be able to win. This year's Yuehua Cup feels of high quality. As soon as I walked into the venue hall, I heard the sound of audience talking. I just saw Kajiki Makoto from the Nenki Ryu Gym. It seems that he will also participate in this year's competition. Kajiki? That new dueling genius of Ninli style? Good guy, you feel like you have something to look at. Then I heard someone say, I don't care about telekinesis duels or anything like that. I just hope that my buddy who plays the Magician clan can advance. Do you want to see my brother advance? Bah, I'm embarrassed to expose you. Don't you just want to see someone summon the magical Valkyrie? The Magic Valkyrie has a cool mage outfit similar to that of the Black Magic Girl in the legendary game deck. She has a pure face and delicate little arms, but she accidentally bears the burden on certain parts that her small body should not bear. The Wade is one of the girls that have long been loved by gentlemen duelists. The person who was exposed immediately blushed, but she is really big. After hearing this, several companions stopped arguing and nodded one after another. One thing to say, that's true. It's really hard to argue with that. Yu Xian walked through the venue, and after walking a few steps, he heard a little girl exclaiming. "Oh my God, is it true? Are you sure you read it correctly?" "It's absolutely true," the girl next to her said with great certainty. "It's absolutely unmistakable, that's Dinosaur Ryazaki. The legendary duelist." Hearing this, Yu Xian paused slightly. Dinosaur Ryazaki? The one in Yu-Gi-Oh! DM? When he first came out, he was still portrayed as a master. He was the national runner-up in the duel competition. However, a series of big names in the game, Kaiba, and DM later did not participate. Real or false? But isn't the Yuehua Cup a non-professional secondary competition? Why would a legendary duelist like this do it? I heard someone say that Ryazaki practiced in seclusion for several years without appearing in public. Now that he has practiced in seclusion, this is his resurrection match. Good guy, the contestants of this year's Yuehua Cup are so unlucky that they bumped into the devil. Yes, isn't the champion already determined now? Yu Xian tried his best to recall. He didn't have a deep impression of Ryazaki, but he did remember his good friend Insect Feather Moth who was always inseparable from him in the anime. Both of them are despicable characters who do whatever it takes to win, but Ryazaki is slightly stronger than Moth. After all, the latter even made a move to throw the entire deck of the game's Dark Archmage, Exodia, into the sea. However, to a certain extent, his behavior can also be said to be the savior of all bosses in the later stages of DM. Just imagine if Lao AI's 5-piece set hadn't been overshadowed by this comparison. With Wang Xiang's Dark Game Artem, late-stage cheating level magic ability of, you can do whatever you want with your eyes closed, what kind of 3 phantom gods would it be? The legendary Dragon Aliha gang could only stand aside. It's definitely not too much for both Malik Dartzi and Dark Taper to give you the 3 clicks. However, since they lost to Wang Yang and Fan Guqing Nai respectively, they seem to have transformed from competitive players into entertainment comedians, and their poker-playing routes have been developing in an increasingly harmonious direction. Speaking of which, Janucci even won the soul card Red-Eyed Black Dragon from Ryazaki. Ryazaki really hasn't won a game since then. DM didn't say what happened to him in the end, and he didn't appear in the sequel GX animation. But now that I think about it, the timeline of GX is only 8 years after the ending of DM, so it's not surprising to encounter it now. In this way, although Wang Xiang has returned to the underworld, the DM-era characters in the game city and other places should still be there in this era, but there is no explanation of where they have gone and what they are doing. As an old man in the DM period, Ryazaki has the title of having fought against Kitsuya Janucci, and has even become a legendary duelist. These days, even those who were outplayed by the game dare to call themselves legends, and some of them actually make a living by relying on this gimmick. Some of them may be really powerful, but some of them are just fishing in troubled waters. Their Battle Duel King value is generally high, but everyone in the next corner will say, I fought with the first Hokage back then. Yuma and Ryazaki have never appeared in GX, so it's hard to say how strong they are now. However, Yu Xian is keeping an eye on it for the time being, thinking that if he encounters him in later games, he should show him some basic respect and make some targeted adjustments to his deck. Yu Xian bought a cup of milk tea, found a seat, and looked through the list of registered players. The players' levels are generally higher than those in the dueling hall. After this competition, they should be able to successfully reach 4 stars, so they won't have to worry about the Academy's application requirements. After scanning the list at a glance, most of the faces were unfamiliar except for Dinosaur Ryazaki. It seemed like there were no characters that I recognized. Yu Xian's eyes fell on a name that seemed familiar. Eyesight is accurate. That GX's 10,000-year-old second-in-command, who completed the reverse transformation from elite to comedian within 1 year. He took the opportunity to check Wan Zhangmu's personal information. It is an elite academy affiliated with Duel Academy and is expected to be recommended to the upper level of Duel Academy this year. In terms of school age, the protagonists of GX should be the same age as myself. Not a big problem. He then took a look at his battle information from the first round of the preliminary round. Tsubasa Nakamura, Duelist Level 4. It seems like there should be no pressure. In fact, Nakamura Tsubasa thought the same thing when he walked onto the pre-selected duel field and came across from Yugen. Fujiki Yugen, Level 1, has no competition experience, no honorary awards, and a blank resume. Nakamura read the brief personal message over and over for a long time, but only saw 2 words between the lines. Free. Sometimes if you are lucky in the arena, you will occasionally encounter such an opponent. This kind of person is called a charity duelist in the industry. I'm not good at cooking, but I just love to fight. The main thing is to give points. Then it's safe. But Nakamura didn't know that when Yugen stood opposite him and started with 5 cards to 1, he felt sorry for his opponent in his heart. Sorry dude, but I'm crazy. It looks like only one of us can play Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu Xian's side attacks first. Then he first takes a magic card, and by paying 1000 life points, he can look at the opponent's hand and discard a card. Followed by a forced enemy soldier, look at the cards in your hand and choose one to return to the deck. Then he followed up with the pranky twin demons, and spent 1000 blood to follow up with the third combo. He randomly threw a card from the opponent and then another card from the opponent. In total, he raised 2 more cards from the opponent. The legendary codex destroys 3 artifacts and creates a triple combo of qualities in one breath. Even before it was the opponent's turn, the opponent was still confused and had only 1 card left in his hand. And because he has seen the opponent's hand, Yu Xian clearly knows that the only card left on the opponent's side is the magic card, Double Magic. By discarding a card from your hand, you can use a magic card from your opponent's graveyard. Not much use. The 3 qualities were completed in one go, and then Yu Xian didn't summon a single monster, and then ended the round after covering 1 more, which was very cool. Finally, he made an elegant, please, gesture. I'm fine, you can do whatever you want. Tsubasa Nakamura was not feeling well. It's not your turn yet and you already have only 1 card in your hand. Why don't you make a fool of yourself? But adhering to the principle of being a duelist, he did not give up. Tsubasa Nakamura calmed down and drew cards from the deck. Then I saw the opponent magnificently reveal a trap card and knock it down. The cards you just drew went directly to the underworld before they were even warmed up. Nakamura was in disarray. This guy has made up his mind not to let others play his cards, right? There is no other way. I have a double magic in my hand, and there is no card that can be discarded to activate the cost. He could only end the round depressed. I always feel like my turn is over before it even begins. I wonder if it's an illusion. Then it's Yu Xian's turn again. Yu Xian activates magic card reinforcements to retrieve a warrior-type monster from the deck. Yu Xian directly took a Leader Zalug, and then summoned Zalug to attack directly. After triggering Zalug's effect and causing combat damage to the opponent, you can discard a card from the opponent's hand. Nakamura Tsubasa. Now he has no cards left. No. What kind of evil did he commit in his previous life to match him with such an autistic thing? End of chapter. Who let him play Yu-Gi-Oh? Chapter 8, Duelist Times. Chapter 8 Duelist Times. Tsubasa Nakamura ended up screaming. The first round of the qualifying round got off to a good start, and Yu Xian was very satisfied with his performance in this round. He also taught by words and deeds to make a person feel what the true meaning of Yu-Gi-Oh is. I believe that this player will also feel something when he goes back to review the game. He has learned a lot from this and will definitely thank him in the end. Yu Xian played several games on the first day, and the density of games was quite high. However, the Yuehua Cup is not a competition with a high registration threshold. There are really many players from all walks of life participating. The qualifiers are held at the same time with many players in different venues, which can greatly save the time of the competition. But nothing was beyond his expectations. There are no prominent characters in the qualifiers, and according to the animation performance, most of the ordinary passerby duelists outside the perspective of the protagonist group are relatively average in strength. For the time being, there is no structure that makes him shine. Of course, Yu Xian will not underestimate his opponents because of this. After the first day of competition, he briefly looked at the other competitions and learned a little about the competition of the promoted players. Although the chances of overturning against most of the opponents were low, Yu Sunsi still erred on the safe side. There is a saying in the art of war that if you know yourself and your enemy, you will be victorious in any battle, and this is even more true in Yu-Gi-Oh! If you can understand your opponent's deck configuration and tactical style in advance, and make targeted adjustments before the start of the game, you can effectively improve your winning rate. Before the Yuehua Cup, the gym had already allocated some subsidies to him in advance, saying it would be used to strengthen the deck and upgrade the configuration. Yu Xian accepted it without any politeness. With this budget, he was able to adjust his original strategy. He went on a shopping spree these days and tried to put together a few more decks. Erasure with notes, although he was the world champion back then, in the animation world, it is obviously unrealistic to rely on just this one trick to conquer the world. Once someone knows that he is going to be targeted, that's definitely something he doesn't want to see. So after Yu Xiansai went to the market to purchase, based on the cards he could receive, he tried to piece together 2 or 3 decks that felt more playable and more likely to bring happiness. He has been changing the deck and adjusting the construction according to the opponent's deck tactics, making his tactics more flexible and difficult to figure out. On the one hand, it allows him to always have a matchup advantage in front of his opponents, and on the other hand, it also makes it more difficult for others to target him. Master Takeuchi made a cup of coffee, sat comfortably on the soft sofa in the afternoon sun, and flipped through the latest Duelist Times. The Duelist Times is a newspaper owned by the Kaiba Group, and it reports on all kinds of anecdotes in the dueling world. He has been busy at home these 2 days and can't spare time to watch the students' games. But he had already heard that the first day of the preliminaries for the 2 students in the dojo had gone smoothly, and he was quite relieved. I opened the newspaper and saw that there were reports about the Yuehua Cup qualifiers. There were almost malicious attacks on the opposing duelists in the Yuehua Cup preliminary round. A contestant lost control of his emotions during the duel, burst into anger and attempted to directly harm the other duelist, but failed and was disqualified. Master Takeuchi looked at the reports here with some curiosity. Is there such a thing? The quality of today's duelists is really getting worse and worse. There are actually some who get angry and attack directly if they can't beat them. They have no basic dignity as a duelist. Take a brief look at the coverage. No real names appear in it, all pseudonyms are used, which seems to be intended to protect the privacy of the contestants. One of them is named Jianren, and the other is named Ji Shu. Then look back. On the 3rd day of the Yuehua Cup, player Shota, pseudonym, suffered an unexpected hemorrhagic stroke during a duel with player Kento, pseudonym. Fortunately, the rescue was timely and player Shota is now out of danger. Got a cerebral hemorrhage from playing cards? The master was surprised. Is this year's Yuehua Cup so dangerous? Wait, he suddenly wanted to discover Hua Dian. The alias of the duelist in both incidents was Kento, so they couldn't be exactly the same person, right? If true, it was an accident once, but twice in a row. Could it be that it's actually the other guy's problem? Master Takeuchi immediately thought of the phenomenon of his blood pressure gradually rising as the duel progressed when he dueled with a student named Yu Xian in the gym 2 days ago. He suddenly had a bad feeling. It can't be that coincidental, right? 3 days later. You're already in the quarterfinals. It was a little too easy to get the ticket to the top 8, so much so that Yu Xian even felt a little unenjoyed. Sure enough, the level of competition at this level is just that. You can't expect too much. Most of your opponents are just so-called private experts. I don't know if the intensity will increase after reaching the quarterfinals. Looking at Yu Xian's expression of regret after successfully advancing, Hao-er felt the urge to hit someone. Yes, unlike Yu Zhen, who pushed all the way to the quarterfinals as if he was cheating, Sato Koji was eliminated on the 2nd day of the qualifying round. He had no competition to play and nothing to prepare for, so he had no choice but to come to the side of his junior brother who had been promoted in the same gym to have a lemon. But the good news is that at least he was eliminated before he could hit Yu Xian, so he didn't have to be tortured in the open court again. And at least now he can watch from the front row, admiring the other players being tortured. Strange to say, when I was tortured by my junior brother, my blood pressure would soar involuntarily, but when I saw others being treated in the same way on the field, I would feel very happy. Sure enough, humans are really strange contradictory creatures. By the way, junior brother, have you seen your battle list? He asked from the side, who is your opponent in the quarterfinals? He was anxious to have the first victim come forward. Oh, he's a student in the middle school of Duel Academy. Yu Xiandao. It's called Wan Zhang Eyes. Brother Wan Zhangmu is so powerful that he is incredible. Wan Zhangmu, who came from the middle school affiliated to Duel Academy, was sitting on the sofa with his legs crossed, enjoying the eloquent licks of his two younger brothers with a contented look on his face. Wan Zhangmu is accurate, the third young master from the famous Wan Zhangmu group, is currently the first in the elite class of the middle school, and will be exempted from the exam this year and will be directly recommended to the super elites of Duel Academy's high school. Wan Zhangmu was raised by his family as a dual elite since he was a child. According to the family's plan, one of his two brothers was arranged to be a business boss, and the other was a high-ranking political figure. The expectation for him was that he would dominate the dueling world as a duel king in the future and become the future pillar of the Wan Zhangmu group. At first glance, this man who wants to become the best card player seems a bit ridiculous compared to his two brothers. However, looking at President Seto Kaiba, you can understand that in this world, playing cards well has a better future than pursuing a career in business or politics. Too much. So it is conceivable that Wan Zhangmu has been arranged to participate in various competitions since he was a child, and he has won championships and medals in various large and small competitions. Participating in the Yuehua Cup this time is also the intention of his family. It is his last experience before entering the upper division of Duel Academy. Like many previous games, the instructions given by his two brothers were also very clear. He entered the competition just to win the championship. To the family, second place equals defeat. There is no point in competing if you don't win first place. But this time even Wan Zhangmu felt a little pressured. Because among the contestants this time, there is actually Dinosaur Ryazaki. The man who was the legendary national runner-up in his early years and fought against the legendary Katsuya Junichi. Can he really win such a legend? Wan Zhangmu rubbed his fingers and stared at the floor in trance. But I've never heard of Wan Zhangmu's opponent in the top 8. What's his name? Fujiki Yugen. Is he a newcomer? Wan Zhangmu came back to his senses and inquired about his opponent's information. Duelist level. A star. He even wondered if he had seen it wrong. Isn't 1 star a fighter among rookies? Can a guy like this compete? Still in the top 8? Another look at competition experience and public honors is blank. The resume is just a blank piece of paper. He looks like nothing but cannon fodder. Brother A curled his lips disdainfully. How did such a guy get to the quarterfinals? Maybe it's just good luck. Brother B said. Even if it's just luck, I think this step still requires some strength. And no matter what, after participating in a public competition for the first time, he was able to reach the quarterfinals. After this competition is over, he will definitely not be able to get 1 star. Maybe they are the kind of dark horses who show up for the first time. Occasionally, there are such talented players. Junior brother B said, well, it's okay to be cannon fodder in front of big brother Wan Zhangmu. That makes sense. Little brother A nodded in agreement, then smiled. But having said that, this guy named Yu Xian is really miserable. He faced the big brother Wan Zhangmu so quickly. It seems that he can only stop at the top 8. Wan Zhangmu smiled slightly and remained silent, as if he wanted to appear cool and pretend to be a master. However, the corners of his mouth that couldn't stop rising and his instinctive tactical leaning back revealed the pride in his heart. Although Wan Zhangmu didn't say anything, he agreed with his younger brother's speculation in his heart. Fujiki Yugen has never heard of it. Even though he is a dark horse, this is his first time competing. Can you still beat me, the number one in the elite class of the middle school, to a second? End of chapter. Who let him play Yu-Gi-Oh? Chapter 9, Sent to Another Dimension. Chapter 9 Sent to Another Dimension. Yu Xian walked onto the duel site and faced his opponent in the first round, Wan Zhang Mukwen, standing firm with each other. Duel, X2. Yu Xian, LP 4000. Wan Zhangmu, LP 4000. The two sides are not familiar with each other, and there is nothing to worry about before the game. In Wan Zhangmu's eyes, he only felt that Yu Xian was the stepping stone for him to advance, and Yu Xian was also looking forward to taking this opportunity to test the actual combat ability of the plot character. It is well known in the poker circle that from the perspective of deck construction alone, the decks of most characters in anime are entertainment in nature. I think back then, most people were ignorant when they were children and learned how to configure decks with animated characters. Then when they started playing, they found that the cards in their hand were accidentally stuck and they doubted their lives. There were 6 cards in their hands during a meeting, but none of them could be played. However, animated characters are completely different from reality in actual combat. They have the ability to write deck bond and read it as only heart and soul draw. The key combo cards are always stuck together with 502. No matter how they are shuffled, they can always be used together. No matter how abstract the deck is, they can still be played. And this ability is more obvious in the hands of stronger duelists. For example, the GX protagonist Yuching Sherdai is famous for his divine drawing, or the DM ends up evolving to the point where he can draw whatever he wants. However, several sets of trump cards in the original work were obtained in later plots. The VWXYZ 5-fold combination was purchased by Professor Kuronos in order to use his hand to teach Yujo Judai. The armed dragon was obtained by him at the Northern College. At this time, he even disturbed the 3 brothers. No. His strength should be much weaker than in the anime. My side attacks first. Yu Xian decisively won the first move randomly obtained by the dual board system. Block a monster onto the field, then add a block card to the backfield. He drew 2 cards from his hand, one was placed on the front of the dual plate, and the other was inserted into the magic trap slot on the back. The images of 2 black hole cards were immediately projected onto the field. The round is over. Oh, it's a defensive deployment. But for me, who is number 1 in the upper and middle school divisions, I should be cautious. Wan Zhangmu shouted with great excitement. Apparently before entering school at this time, Ban Zhangmu had not been severely beaten by Judai and felt very good about himself. But it's no use. When it's my turn, draw a card. He glanced at the cards in his hand and immediately drew 2 of them. I cover a card and put it on the field. Then I activate the magic card, Codex Obliteration. Both parties discard all the cards in their hands, and then draw the same number of cards from the deck as the discarded cards. Yu Xian discarded all the cards in his hand according to his words, and changed the cards in his hand with Wan Zhangmu. After the new hand card was replaced, Wan Zhangmu immediately pressed the button to activate the card, turn over the card, the magic card, Silent Dead. It can resurrect the normal monsters in the cemetery in defense position. I resurrected the female swordsman Kanan, that was just thrown into the graveyard. A black vortex opened on the field, and a beautiful red-haired female warrior holding a sword in one hand and a shield appeared from the vortex. She half-crouched on the ground, a horizontal card appeared under her feet, and her shield was held in front of her like a guard. Female swordsman Kanan, defense power 1400. Then activate the equipment magic, Big Sword, from your hand and equip it to the female swordsman. The equipped monster's attack power increases by 300. Animation card. Female swordsman Kanan, attack power 1400, attack power 1700. You must be thinking, what's the use of increasing the attack power of a defensive monster? Wan Zhangmu laughed. Yu Xian's face was expressionless, and he said in his heart that he wasn't thinking so at all. Let me tell you, the elite duel is far beyond your imagination. Wan Zhangmu said, equipment magic, Great Sword, has another effect. When the equipped monster is used as a summoning sacrifice for a warrior monster, it can be used as 2. Therefore, I sacrificed one of the female swordsman Kanan, equipped with a big sword as 2 sacrifices. A white whirlwind rolled up and enveloped the swordsman on the field. The golden light enveloped her and her sword, turning into light spots and dissipating. The light of dawn, illuminate the road to victory, use the legendary sword to cut off obstacles. Wan Zhongmu raised a card high, and the storm summoned behind him lifted the hem of his clothes. Show up. Level 8, Legendary Sword Master. A masked swordsman in black armor stepped out of the storm, carrying a long sword behind him. Her red hair is flying and she has an extraordinary bearing. Legendary Sword Master, Attack Power 2600. Yu Xian nodded slightly. Well, as expected, duelists in this world will have more fancy actions and lines when summoning bosses. The audience who were watching the game at this time couldn't help but exclaimed. Such a powerful monster was summoned in the first round. A red-haired girl exclaimed, that boy seems to be no ordinary person. Ha ha ha, of course. The younger brother A in Wan Zhongmu's class happened to be sitting in the back row. When he heard this, he immediately became proud, that is the first place in the elite class of the middle section of our duel academy. Brother Wan Zhongmu. Brother Wan Zhongmu has already been admitted to the higher education department of the college this year. Playing such a small role is totally a waste of time. Junior brother B also agreed proudly. First place in the elite class of the middle school. The 2 girls were immediately in awe, and their eyes turned to looking up to the big boss when they looked at the tens of thousands of people on the screen. They have all heard that although the intermediate section of Duel Academy is not as difficult to get into as the advanced section, there are still good players. And among them, all the elite classes are young geniuses. First place in the elite class. That's a real boss. Suddenly he began to feel a little sympathy for his opponent. The 2 girls immediately looked regretful. It's a pity that the young man named Fujiki Yugen is quite handsome. It seems that after this round, he will never be seen again. It's not over yet. Wan Zhongmu is still operating. Legendary Sword Master, the effect is activated. When this card is successfully summoned, equip as many equipment cards in your graveyard as possible to the warrior monsters on your field. He paused, took the 2 cards that popped up from the dual plate 2 area, and sneered. Of course, the Sword Master himself is a warrior. Therefore, the person I want to designate equipment for is also the Sword Master himself. I put the equipment magic, Great Sword, in the cemetery, the equipment magic, Jade Sword, and at the same time gave the legendary sword, Holy Gear. Animated card. The 2 equipment magics are superimposed on the juggernaut at the same time. The swordsman let out an energy-filled roar and pulled out the sword behind him. The blade continued to lengthen and was about to turn into a 40-meter machete. The big sword and the jade sword each increased the sword master's attack power by 300 points. Therefore, the total attack power increases by 600. Legendary Sword Master, Attack Power 2600, Attack Power 3200. Attack Power 3002. The red-haired girl was even more surprised. This is still the first round. It has already exceeded the attack power of the legendary, Blue Eyes White Dragon. The 2 younger brothers felt even more proud. Brother E raised his eyebrows and said with a fake smile, sit down, it's a small scene. It's a basic operation for Brother Wan's Hengmu. However, Yu Xian, who was in the middle of the battle at this time, was not intimidated by this posture, or rather it was quite the opposite. He was staring at the only 2 cards left in Wan Zhongmu's hand. The fight has just started, and Wan Zhongmu's hand has already lost 4 out of 6. Rounding it off, it's roughly equal to 4 for 1. This card made him feel distressed just looking at it. No matter how hard you work, you will almost catch up with the legendary 5 for 1 scene in the anime where the 5 cards in your hand turn into a blank slate. Hahaha, are you impressed by this overwhelming power? Wan Zhongmu laughed, don't worry, it will be over soon. Combat phase. Legendary Sword Master, defeat that hidden fish monster. The Sword Master unsheathed his sword and flew forward. The 40-meter machete swung out an astonishing wave of energy. The monster covering the playground was completely unable to resist. It flipped over weakly under the pressure of the wind, revealing its true appearance. is a female warrior. The blonde female warrior wearing a black combat uniform and high boots squatted half-crouched holding a sword in front of her. She looked so petite and weak in front of such a giant sword with such a thick blade. Female warrior from another dimension, defense power 1600. The effect of the female warrior from another dimension is activated. Yu Xian said calmly, when this card fights with the opponent's monster, after the damage calculation step, all the opponent's monsters it fights with will be removed from the game. I will directly send your 8-star monster to another dimension. Wan Zhongmu. End of chapter. Who let him play Yu-Gi-Oh? Chapter 10, Not Even to the Grave. Chapter 10, Even to the Grave. Dimension Slash, one of the early mainstream decks that was active in the Yu-Gi-Oh competitive environment. Although he failed to win the honor of World Championship at that time, he once proved his combat effectiveness in the early environment, and he was not without the ability to compete with the champion of that year. The idea of Yu Xian's initial deck was based on the destruction of the champion deck handbook, but due to the lack of some components and the fact that the current environment was not exactly the same, he just followed the idea and made adjustments to the structure. Dimensional Slash is one of the builds he is currently testing. As the name suggests, the core idea of this deck is to send the opponent's card to another dimension. It mainly relies on violent exchanges like the different dimensional female warrior that can forcibly remove oneself and the opponent's monsters. However, our side is full of ready-to-use lower-level monsters, which can often be replaced by the opponent, which consumes a lot of resources. The big monster created creates an advantage in resources. Just like Yu Xian is doing now. And because the opponent's monsters that were eliminated were kicked to another dimension instead of entering the cemetery, it could also cause a lot of trouble to the mainstream of the competitive environment that relied on cemetery resources. At the same time, the environment back then was filled with a large number of last word monsters that retrieve from the deck when entering the graveyard. However, these monsters were unable to trigger their effects when facing Dimension Slash, which was very uncomfortable. Yu Xian has not been able to experience that ancient environment personally, but he can imagine that the duelists who encountered the Dimension Slash structure for the first time back then had to deal with the monsters that they had worked so hard to create and were sent to the opposite side as soon as the opponent fired a flat dimension. His mentality must have collapsed. Just like Wan Zhongmu is like now. Before she died, the female warrior from another dimension made a desperate fight and cut through the void with a single slash of her sword, slashing a black hole in the field like a dimensional slash. The majestic gravity immediately captured the two warriors. The sword master and the female warrior were both sucked into it and disappeared at the other side of the black hole. After losing the equipment target, the magic of the two pieces of equipment in the backfield exploded twice, turning into golden fragments and dissipating. Wan Zhongmu's operation was as fierce as a tiger's, and the monster he created after running out of resources was kicked directly to the OB outside the field without even being able to cut it with a single blow. He almost lost his breath for a moment. But Wan Zhongmu took a deep breath and quickly stabilized his mentality. Calm down, be calm. It's just a loss of a mere 8-star monster, 2 pieces of equipment, and 4 cards in hand. No big deal. When the equipped magic Jade Sword is sent from the field to the graveyard, draw a card from the deck. Wan Zhongmu drew a card from the deck and finally recovered a little bit of blood. He took a look and inserted the drawn card directly into the magic trap area. Set a card onto the field and the round ends. My turn, draw a card. Yu Xian added the drawn card to his hand, and then revealed another card from his hand. Yu Xiandao, summon the female warrior of the wilderness. Female warrior of the wilderness, attack power 1100. Fight directly. Yu Xian waved his hand and ordered, female warriors in the wilderness, attack the opponent directly. The female warrior unsheathed her sword and flew towards Wan Zhongmu. But Wan Zhongmu also had a countermeasure. He flipped over the cover card with a wave of his arm, activate the trap card, Absorption Shield. Invalidate the opponent's attack and restore the health of the attacking monster equal to its attack power. A transparent rainbow barrier appeared in front of Wan Zhongmu. The female warrior's long sword struck the barrier fiercely. The force immediately turned into energy and was absorbed. The golden light turned into warmth and fell on Wan Zhongmu. Wan's Hangmu, LP4000 LP5100. Ha, what a pity. But an attack of this magnitude is completely expected. Wang Zhongmu continued to rant. Yu Xian didn't take it seriously. Anyone who plays cards knows that this game only has 0 blood and full blood. As long as you still have LP, it's fine, it's not that important compared to other resources in this game. Then set a card and the round is over. Yu Xian said. My turn. Wang Zhongmu drew a card and immediately revealed it, magic card, Pot of Desire. Draw 2 more cards from the deck. The Kettle of Desire is the standard equipment of the GX protagonist group. Everyone must have a Kettle of Desire. Summon, Warrior of the Dark Demon Realm, Sword of Darkness, and enter an attack state. The image of the card appeared, and a warrior in black steel armor flew out of the card with 2 knives, his body covered with silver-white blades like fangs. Warrior of the Dark Demon Realm, Sword of Darkness, attack power 1800. Let me let you know now that my monsters are also the elite of the elite, and they are completely different from the lower-level trash fish. Wang Zhongmu raised his hand and shouted, Come on, Sword of Darkness. Use the female warrior of the wilderness, break. The corners of his mouth curled up and he snorted proudly. Although the underworld thing opposite had deceived his big monster, it didn't matter. Warrior of the Dark Demon Realm, Sword of Darkness, is also a powerful subordinate with a high market value. The attack power of 4 stars of 1800 is still very capable. Could it be that you can take out another different dimensional female warrior unit 2 from your crotch and kick me out of another dimension? The black-armored swordsman stepped forward and slashed with both blades. The female warrior was immediately cut open at the waist and exploded on the spot with a loud bang. Yu Xian, LP4000 LP3300. Yu Xian, whose monster was defeated, looked calm, pulled out the deck from the dual plate and started turning over the cards. The effect of the Wild Warrior is activated. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, special summon an Earth Warrior type monster with an attack power of 1500 or less from the deck to your field in face-up attack position. The one I want to summon is this guy. As he said this, he took out the retrieved card from the deck. Summon, warriors from different dimensions, in attack position. Warrior from another dimension, attack power 1200. Wang Zhongmu, exclamation point. No, come again. He also knew this monster. When a warrior from another dimension fights a monster, remove the opponent's monster and this card from the game. The other one in the dimensional/build has exactly the same effect as the different dimensional female warrior. Seeing the warrior from another dimension standing still on the opposite field, Wang Zhongmu's eyelids twitched twice, and he couldn't help but feel a little pain in his balls. No. How come these underworld things of yours can still fly from the deck? No, you have to be calm and don't lose your sense of proportion. Wang Zhongmu glanced at a card in his hand from the corner of his eye. There are no means to deal with this underworld thing. I put a card on the field, and the round is over. Wang Zhongmu declared. Yu Xian's gaze swept across the backcourt where Wang Zhongmu was finally covering up. Looking at this posture, does it seem that there are countermeasures to deal with warriors from other dimensions? He smiled. Never mind. My turn, draw a card. Yu Xian confirmed the drawn card and showed it directly. Summon Spirit Slayer, Kai Kong, in attack position. The person who appeared was a bald monk wearing cassocks, but he had a fierce look on his face, and he was holding a rosary as if he was going to hit someone with it at any time. In short, he looks like a warrior monk who loves to convince people with reason. Spiritual Destroyer Haikong, attack power 1800. Wang Zhongmu narrowed his eyes and looked at the great monk. The attack power is 1800, which is comparable to his dark sword. Want to die together? Or fight? Yu Xiandao, first, the warrior of another dimension, attacks the warrior of the dark demon world, the Sword of Darkness. Sure enough, it came. Don't even think about it. Open the Gaika. A bright light flashed in Wang Zhongmu's eyes, and he waved his hand to open the backcourt. Trap card, Explode Armor. When the opponent's monster attacks, that monster is destroyed directly. As he spoke, he twitched the corners of his mouth and showed a confident smile. Hey, Do you still want to use the monster effect to eliminate my monster? Unfortunately, the same trick will not work against me a second time. It is your own monster that will be destroyed. Yu Xian raised his eyebrows. Exploding armor is okay. Yu-Gi-Oh! Viewers know that throughout the entire history of Yu-Gi-Oh!, there have been many opportunities for explosive armor to appear in animations, but so far the number of successful launches has been 0. It even seems like everyone who has tried to use this card has sent it, as if they were cursed by some world will. Naturally, this curse cannot be broken in the hands of Yu Xian. Open the cover card. Yu Xian's backcourt also flipped, counter trap, thief 7 items. Pay 1000 health points to invalidate the activation of the trap card and destroy it. Wan Zhongmu's eyelids twitched again. Nanny. It's sunny, why are your things from the underworld protected by red pits? Yu Xian, LP3300 LP2300. The trap with 1,000 feet was countered, and the hardworking explosive armor exploded into pieces, continuing the invincible myth that it could not pass. The battle continued, and the sword of darkness slashed through the warrior of another dimension with his sword, but before the warrior died, he also opened a rift in the dimension, and like a black hole, both sides were sucked into the whirlpool and disappeared. Yu Xian, LP2300 LP1700. As a result, Wanzhong's current and backcourts are completely blank. Then there's the Spirit Annihilation Magician. Yu Xian continued, directly attack Wan Zhongmu. Hearing the words, Haikong took a step forward, threw out the rosary beads in his hand like a hidden weapon, and hit Wan's Hangmu on the head with a snap. The physical shock only made his head buzz, as if he felt the weight of the Buddha. Wan's Hangmu, LP5100 LP3300. At this moment, the effect of the Soul Slayer is also activated. Yu Xian continued, when Kai Kong inflicts health damage to the opponent through battle, you can select up to 2 monsters in the opponent's graveyard and exclude them from the game. However, although you can choose 2, all the monsters that have been beaten by Wan Zhongmu have long been kicked to another dimension. In the cemetery, there are only the female swordsman Kanan and the hand that were originally used as sacrifices. Erase the other monster card that was thrown away. So Yu Xian clicked on the 2 remaining monster cards. Not only the monster resources on the field, but also the only monster resources in the cemetery were sent to another dimension. Wan Zhongmu's whole person was in a mess. That's too much. Are you going to even go to the grave and not let it go? If the predictions are correct, this week we should test the waters of recommending this book based on the number of readings of the chapters released tomorrow night. Follow-up reading refers to the number of people who have read the latest chapter within 24 hours after it is released. So book in advance to read the new chapter tomorrow. Autumn Pear Paste. End of chapter.